Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, Grenadier1. As always, I hope you are having a good week. It's been kind of a crappy one for me. Earlier this week, the wife and I hit a deer with the car. Well, more accurately, the deer ran into us, but it didn't matter. That has caused some difficulties. As you can imagine, insurance and trying to locate a shop to do the work kind of messed up the car pretty good. It's been a real pain. So, and that coupled with some things at work have kind of delayed me putting the show out this week. So I apologize for that. For those expecting it to be released on Thursday evenings, sometimes, life gets in the way and your timetable gets pushed a little bit. So anyway, let's get into the show today. At the end of 2022, I talked about doing some shows on leadership, and I've been thinking on how I would present this information, and thematically how I would structure the shows, as well as doing some research and some reading on that. The part that has been the most difficult is the reading. I read a lot, but there are times that I just can't get into a subject. And I have to put the book down and just read something else because my mind is craving something else, just looking for some other flavor at the moment. And that's kind of how it's been the last few weeks. I picked up this biography on Rommel. I actually had owned the book for a long time. I bought it at a used book sale many years ago, but I had never read it, and it's a big book. It's about 800 pages. And I've read like 2 chapters out of it, and I just keep putting it down. In the time that over the last 3 or 4 weeks that I've read those 2 chapters, I've read 2 other books on other subjects, and that, I'm just more into those other subjects right now. So it's been kind of a struggle. I have this desire to get the program together, and the brain is just wanting to do something different entirely. So I spent some time this week, though, thinking about this and realized that I got to do something on the topic this week. I've been talking about it. I've been kind of promising it. So I got to do something. But the way I want to deliver this information kind of dictates that I need to explain things and kind of lay out some groundwork first before I get into specific examples. So I want to do a show where we go over that kind of stuff. So we need to have some structure to what we're talking about and define what good leadership is before we really bring out leaders who exemplify those characteristics and traits that I'm highlighting here. So I went into training material and documents and books that I have on leadership, and I put together some things that I think are the factors that matter the most and what constitutes good leadership or good leaders. First off, I want to distinguish styles of leadership from these specific traits because they're different. You can have these traits, but your style of leadership may or may not highlight or take advantage of them, and it could hinder how effective you are as a leader. And that goes the other way as well. You can, use these various styles of leadership effectively, but because you lack or do not display these characteristics, these traits sufficiently, you may not be as impactful as you could. You may not be as good as you could be. So for this, I'm referencing the Basic Officer Course material, which was produced by the Air Force. I took that course as part of Civil Air Patrol, so that's why I have it, what I've been exposed to it through. And it defines 3 styles of leadership. It lays out some traits of what it considers, is critical, to be an effective leader. And this course puts an emphasis on balancing those traits and balancing the styles to be the most effective. And I agree with this approach because it offers flexibility to the leader. As someone, I've been a manager for a long time, and there are times that, methodology is just not appropriate to a specific situation. Uh, and I find having had many bad managers, that typically when there's a conflict or a problem, it's because the manager's trying to force a style of leadership to deal with a problem that it's not really suited for. And at least that's my experience anyway. Your mileage may vary. Do not taunt Happy Fun Ball. So this course defines 3 styles of leadership, and I'm going to lay those out and go through them real quick. The first is authoritative, or what you could call dictatorial. And this is just what it sounds like. The leader makes all the decisions and does not delegate any trust or responsibility to those subordinate to them or to below them. The leader identifies a problem, determines the possible solutions, and determines the course of action to implement that solution. And then they issue instructions to subordinates on how to accomplish all the tasks. And this is done without the input of anyone else on the team. And very often, this is how leaders try to operate. It's the default in management. We see this, very often in business. I've had managers who this is how they did everything. And there are times that this style is needed. And in fact, you will see that there are times that all of these styles are needed. Like I said above, use the style best suited to the situation, and things will generally work better. I can tell you from experience that if you try this authoritative style for a long time, or if it's just your default operating pattern, people are going to, they're going to get wise to that. The people who are reporting to you, they know how this is how you operate. You're going to become exhausted. Okay. It's mentally exhausting to deal with every single decision that people have to make. But they will come to you with everything because they are afraid to make their own decisions. And generally, this style of leadership kind of becomes a trap. And it becomes a trap when the leader does not trust their subordinates to make decisions. When you don't trust the capabilities of your people, you can find yourself making every decision for them, and it will wear you down. I've seen this happen. I've experienced it myself in a couple of situations when I've had things happen in a professional environment, and I had to really stay on top of someone who was not performing. I ran into this several times. When you fall into this trap, your people can just dig that hole deeper and deeper for you by overloading you with every question on the most simplest, stupidest things. All that being said about it, there are times that the fastest way to get something done is just to do this. Make the decision and tell your people what and how the things need to be done, and okay, go do it. I don't need your input. I don't want your response. I don't need any of that. Here's what I want you to do. Here's how I want you to do it. Go do it. Get it done by this time. Sometimes that is necessary. The next style is called the democratic or participation style. And this is best described as including the viewpoints and information from others within the team in the decision-making process. The ultimate decision still remains with the leader, as well as the authority and responsibility. It's more of a collaborative style, and the officer course says this should not be seen as a weakness. It is the opposite. It is a strength, and I agree with that 100%. As a leader, you often do not have all of the information or all the parts of the story, and if you try to make all the decisions without this input from your people, you're going to run into trouble. It will burn you more often than not. You tell one story, and I say story, it's not, you craft a narrative, to someone else. Hey, this is what happened, or this is what is going on, and you explain that, but you're missing pieces because you haven't talked to anybody. And then they come back later on and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not accurate. This is what's going on. Well, then you look like an idiot to your management because, you sound like you don't really know what the problem is. So it will burn you if you don't get input from your people. Sometimes it happens anyway, just in error, but if you don't seek input from your people and get buy-in from them, and have all this information, it certainly can get you into trouble. If your people believe that you're making decisions without listening to them, or you're ignoring the information that they have, which is counter to the decision that you've made, they're going to lose confidence in you too. It's another way to get yourself in trouble. Now, quick point here. There are times as a leader that you have information that your people do not, and that you can't share it with them for whatever reason. There's reasons for not passing every bit of information down to your people. And if that information is what is really driving your decision, then you need to explain that to your people. I've seen this many times as well. You provide input and information, and the leader says, thanks, but we're doing this other thing. And it's completely illogical to do it that way based off the information that you have. But later on, you find out they knew something else that they didn't tell you that makes their decision at least make more sense. And if they had just said, look, I have some information I can't share, that means we have to do this a different way, then at least you understand what they are doing and you don't, think that they're incompetent, okay? To maintain balance in your teams, reality is this should be your default style of leading, this participation kind of style. And you mix in the other things as needed, or you kind of create a blend of styles that is more efficient and takes advantage of the capabilities of the people you have on your team. And I'll expand on that in a minute, but let's first look at the third style. And this is the Laissez-faire or delegative style. And this is described as discussing the problem or issue and amongst the team and allowing team members to make decisions and determine the best course of action to take on their own. The leader is still ultimately responsible for the decisions, but the team members may have more knowledge of the process or the technical aspects of the task than the leader does. And this is a good style to use when you are very trusting of your team members in how they think and execute their tasks. There can be pitfalls here as well if your team begins to view you as being unnecessary. If you're allowing them to take and make all of the decisions and determine all of the actions, then they may come to kind of resent your presence and dismiss your authority. So it has to be used wisely, or at least cultivated carefully in your team. This is kind of the style that I have gotten to with my team. I've worked with these people for a very long time. I've been a manager for a long time, and they've been with me for many, many years. So I've gotten to the point where I can tell them, look, this is the outcome that I want, that I'm trying to get to, and you guys get there however you want to, okay? Within the boundaries of our policies and our processes, of course. Don't break the rules kind of thing. But I really don't care exactly how you pull the levers and push the buttons, as long as the outcome at the end is what we're looking for. So I trust you to do your job. I know that your capabilities, what you're capable of. I know you can meet timelines, these kind of things. So I don't have to micromanage you. And that's just because, again, I've come to build that level of trust and understanding with my team. If you look at these styles, what you might notice is that you could be looking at the evolution of a team over the course of time. A new leader comes in and they immediately take up an authoritative stance on everything. Okay, I want to know everything that you're doing. I want to make every decision and micromanage for a little bit. And then they learn about their team and they kind of transition into a participation style of leadership. And then as you build cohesion and trust, the leader becomes more delegative to the team and allows them to simply just take the tasks, assigned to them by the leader and go work on them until they're complete. A good leader can take all three of these styles and use them when and where they are needed to effectively lead their team. Like I said, there's times that, you can do, generally for me, I delegate things out. But there are times that you have to step in and say, look, We're on a quick timeline. This has got to get done. I need you to put everything aside. I want you to do this. I want you to do it this way. Here's the time frame. Boom, go do it. I don't need any input from you. There are times that's just how you have to do things. This is these styles should be seen by you in your day-to-day life, in your business life, in your work life. This is the leadership that affects us the most, and because it's the leaders that we interact with the most. It's managers, it's people who are in civil or nonprofit organizations, and so on. Just normal leadership that you interact with, and you should have seen these things. You should have seen examples of things and been exposed to this. But there are other aspects of leaders, other traits that work with these styles or work against them, that I think they're just as important, if not more important, than the style. So let's look at those. The first one, and just because I'm randomly saying it's first, not because I think it's the most important. I put these in no particular order, but competency. Knowing your material, know your processes and your methodologies. People are going to be more willing to follow you and trust you if they know that you understand what they are doing. You don't have to be an expert at it, and you don't have to, know every single little detail and aspect of what they're doing, but just have a solid foundational understanding of what what their tasks require. The next thing is respect. Trust your people. There is something, this is something that is earned, of course, but trust your people and have empathy for what they are going through. You will earn their respect if you go through it with them, and people that respect you will be far more willing to follow you. They don't have to like you, but if they trust you and respect you, they'll follow you. They'll do what you ask them to. Next up is loyalty. Protect your people. Go to bat for them and defend them. Keep their well-being in mind when you're making decisions and when you're looking at the downstream consequences of actions. Defend them to your leaders and from others outside of your immediate organization. You are ultimately responsible for their actions. So if you build a team that is loyal to you, they will not do anything that is embarrassing to you or the rest of the team. They just, they will not want to do that. And the last one that I think is critical is ownership. Now, if you've read the book by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin called Extreme Ownership, you will get this without me even having to say it here. Okay, you'll understand this. But for those who haven't read that, and I do suggest that you go get that book and read it. They have a line in that book that really stuck with me. It was the big takeaway from all of it, that probably I guess was the most important lesson I learned out of it. They say there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And that was, when I read that, I had to, initially I stepped back and I was like, wait a minute, what does that mean? And then I read some more and I really started to think about it and understand it. And this is spot on accurate. You are ultimately responsible for everything that your people do, right and wrong. If they are failing, it's not their fault that they continue to fail, at least in terms of the team, the overall performance. If you are the leader and you allow them to continue to fail, then it's your fault. It's your fault that it's impacting your team and making your team bad. Own it. Okay, fix it. Fix it however you need to do to fix it. Okay, that may mean that the person who is failing has to go. Maybe they just need to move to another team because they're not just gelling with the team that they are on. It's like interpersonal problems. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the tasks are too much for them, or they just need training and instruction, or maybe they need a different style of leadership from you as the leader. Whatever the case may be, maybe you need to micromanage them. That might be how that person acts or responds better and performs better when you're, really riding on them. Whatever you need to do to fix that, whatever the case may be, the bottom line is that if you allow them to continue to fail, then you, as the leader, are failing. If you don't own that and throw that person under the bus, that's doubling down on your failure. You can't sit there, well, we screwed up because, little Johnny over here was doing these things. That doesn't work. Your people will trust you and respect you and be more loyal to you if they know that you, when they are coming up short, you take responsibility for them and do what you can to help them overcome that. Okay, so those are 4 traits that I believe are critical to good leadership, and you might be able to identify some historic leaders that already exemplify those traits, and who might be great examples of them. And I'll be putting together episodes about leaders who I think show one or more of these and are great examples of them. So look forward to those in the coming weeks. And in the meantime, let me know some of your suggestions on people who you think might fit the bill and who you might want to see on a show. And these are things that these traits, we don't often see them in politicians. Let's put it that way. And I think that's the critical failure, the critical problem that we have, is that we have put too much emphasis on some things that really don't matter. Notice I did not mention charisma, or looks or anything like that in this list. I listed some things that were really critical aspects of how somebody actually works and accomplishes things, not just how they look doing it. But I think far too often, at least in the political arena, we put too much emphasis on charisma and speaking and things like that, and that's why we are failing. So anyway, that's all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.